Hello guys! This is exciting. It's my first time streaming the Focus Friday streams, and I chose to talk a little bit about PLO. I have my PLO streams and free rolls, and I also been working a lot in my PLO game. PLO seems easy, but it's not so simple. So we're gonna start with how to select which hands to play, right? You all have 4 cards, they all seem nice. How you narrow down what is good, what is not good, and what to look for. My first slide here is that in No Limit Hold'em, you have 1,326 possible starting hands. So when you memorize, what should I open under the gun? You can see the charts and literally memorize. It's simple. But in PLO it's not as simple because we have over 270,000 starting hands. So mostly when you try to memorize what you should be raising or not, you memorize the bottom of your range. And we're gonna go a little deeper about this concept. So the first thing we should have in mind is domination. We really want to avoid domination. I know we all have 4 cards, all of them look nice, but everybody else has 4 cards. So when you're playing multi-way spots, if you don't have the nuts, most times you're gonna get beat. So these are some of the key elements that we should be looking. So a good starting PLO hand must have nuttiness possibility. So we're talking about top fulls, nut flush draws, nut blockers, connectivity, so you can make nut straights, high card ranks. We should avoid gaps, suitiness. Of course, a rainbow hand is worse than a hand with 1 possible flush draw, and a hand with 1 possible flush draw is worse than double suited hands. Also, when you have a possible ace high flush draw, you don't want to have the ace and the king in your hand, because when you have the nut flush draw, you're hoping someone has the second nut, so you can win a lot of value post flop. And another thing, guys, the side cards. So let's say I have aces. What are the other 2 cards that I'm holding? We're gonna learn that we can have very good aces, we can have medium aces, and we can have very bad aces that not necessarily want to fast play or go all in or even raise pre-flop. So the same goes to the other pairs, kings, queens. The side cards, they matter a lot. And here are some other factors. The limit you're playing. So if you're playing very high, nosebleeds, the rake in general, it's very small. But if you're playing 1 cent, 2 cents, you're probably gonna be paying a lot of rake, and this will impact in your win rate. So we wanna play less hands. The position, this is the same as in No Limit Hold'em. Another factor is if you're playing heads up or multi-way. There are hands that perform very, very well heads up, but they perform very poorly multi-way because they have low nut possibilities, and we're gonna find ourselves dominated very often. And the effective stack size, when you're playing 30, 20 big blinds deep, then high pairs, high cards matter more. And when we're playing very, very deep, then hands that have good playability, they increase in value. So in Pot Limit Omaha, you receive 4 cards, as do your opponents. So because everybody has 4 cards, the probability of everybody having better cards is very high. So when you hit the flop, when you decide to play the other streets, in PLO, normally you should have a backup plan. you should have backdoors, you should have a pair and a flush draw, a pair and a gut shot. You always should have something more than just what you have there because the structure of the board changes a lot with the future streets to come, and your hand must be strong enough to be able to continue as the board changes. So let's say you have Ace of Hearts, King of Hearts, Six of Hearts, and Six of Clubs. And we're gonna see why this hand may be problematic. Once you flop a set, you probably won't have a redraw because you have 3 cards of hearts, so probably there will be less hearts there. The sixes are a very small rank pair, so when you flop a set, unless it's 6 high, the board, you won't have top set. And if you have top set, let's say the board is 6 high, there will be straight possibilities and all of that, and many times you still won't have the nuts. When you make a pair, let's say you hit the ace or you hit the king, it will be tougher to make a second pair because you're holding a pocket pair in your hand. When you look at your hand, you must think about all the post-flop situations, scenarios, and how your hand can perform. So we talk about the ace, king, 6-6. What about jack of diamonds, 9 of diamonds, 8 of spades, and 7 of spades? This looks like a very good hand, right? When you're playing a limit hold and if you have suited connectors, you want to play. Is this a good hand or bad? Well, it depends. It depends again. This is a hand, for an example, that versus one opponent performs very well. We have one gap, but we have a lot of connectivity. We have double suitedness. So you can hit a lot of equity in many flops. But if you're playing mode away, this is a hand that performs very, very bad. And you don't want to play. In PLO, because it's a multiple streets game, again, we're talking about 100 big blinds deep, 6 max, you value position even more than in no limit hold'em. And a lot of times the EV of calling certain hands is higher than by raising. Under the gun raises are very strong. So we don't want to 3-bet that often. Button likes calling a lot and is almost never raising. And why you think this happens? Button is guaranteed to play post-flop in position. So I think a very important note to have here is that we're gonna flat a lot of hands when we play in position post-flop. And the small blind is always out of position post-flop. We can play pretty much 3-bet or fold strategy here. Napoleon! Hey! He's being rude, huh? Maybe he doesn't like PLO. So I selected a few hands that I want to talk to you, and we're gonna look how domination works, how aces perform versus one opponent, more opponents versus another aces, and try to understand a little bit better the equities in PLO. This is very, very important. And when you have a better understanding of the equities, you start to realize what can cause you trouble and you avoid that pre-flop. Let's analyze this one hand. This is a very good hand, right? We have high cards, we have one suit, we have a high pair, we have connectivity, and this is also a good hand. Double suitedness, connectivity, no gaps, like, great. But you gotta think when you play a hand like this, if you make a flush, you're always gonna have 8 high flush or 6 high flush. It's always a very low flush, and when the chips get in, a lot of times you will lose. And also because you have these low rank flushes, you cannot raise that often, you know, like stuff. So even when you hit your hand, you don't make the most money out of it. So it's tough to play. So it's a hand that mostly want to make a straight, right? But on a board like this, which is a pretty frequently board, so they both hit the flop very well here. But this guy can make the nuts, and this guy cannot. So look how his equity is crushed. This guy is 2-1 favorite. So let's look this one here. So we are on the flop. This first hand here, let's see what he has. He has a 10 and a straight draw. Ace, queen, jack, and 9 are possible outs. He also has a backdoor spades. So like he has a lot of possibilities, right? Kind of when you have this hand is what you're expecting for. This guy here, he flopped 2 pairs, top 2 pairs. But his hand won't improve. Like it's very tough to play this hand here, even though at the moment you have top 2 pairs. But any clubs, any card from ace to 9, a 5, you know, like a lot of things are just not good. And this hand here, he's behind at the moment, but he has the flush draw. So a lot of these guys' outs, the straight outs, are dominated by this guy's flush draw. He has 2 aces, so he's blocking some of the straight outs of this one guy here. And he chop when the queen comes. This one hand here, it's very difficult to play the future streets. This one guy here, he might feel like he flopped the world, but he's still losing a lot of money. He chops 7% and he wins only 20.5% of times. And this guy here, even though he's not ahead at this very moment, he still has the best hand. He has aces, he has domination. You know, his outs are nut outs. His outs can kill your opponent's outs. And he can still chop. Very often you will find yourself in very tough spots. So pretty much you want to improve on future streets. And if your hand doesn't have the ability to do it, that's probably not a good hand, even though you have top 2 pair and so on.